Welcome the Lord's chosen. There comes a day when you stop being polite about your power, and today is that day. Did you know that psychologically, people are more afraid of someone who stops reacting than someone who gets angry? It's true, silence unnerves them. But what really shakes them is when you stop asking for permission and start moving like you own the room. Chosen one, this isn't just a clapback season. This is the era where you stop babysitting everyone's comfort zone. They thought you'd keep turning the other cheek, keep explaining yourself, keep dimming your light just so they wouldn't feel exposed. Cute, right? Not anymore. This is the moment where you step out, unapologetic, unbothered, and completely uninterested in playing the nice character they wrote for you. They didn't see this coming. And honestly, that's the fun part. Number one, you don't fight for space, you become the space. You don't fight for space, you become the space. That's the kind of shift that doesn't just change how people see you, it changes how they are forced to interact with you. When you were fighting for space, you were explaining yourself, proving yourself, waiting for someone to validate your right to stand where you stood. You were hoping they'd make room, hoping they'd notice, hoping they'd let you sit at the table. But the day you stopped fighting and became the space, everything changed. You stopped waiting for permission. You stopped shrinking to fit their comfort. You stopped asking to be understood and started letting your presence speak without compromise. Becoming the space is about filling the room with your authenticity so completely that no one can deny you are there. It is not loud, it is not desperate, and it's not a performance. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows they belong because they built themselves from the ground up. You don't need to fight anyone for a seat because you are the floor everyone stands on. You are the energy that sets the tone. People have to adjust to you now, not the other way around. This shift can be uncomfortable at first because it means walking away from places that tolerated you instead of celebrated you. It means leaving behind people who only gave you crumbs of attention when you were desperate for the loaf. It means no longer explaining why you deserve to be included. You simply move forward and let those who get it keep up. It's the difference between knocking on doors and building your own house so solidly that they have to come to your door if they want access. And here's the truth. When you become the space, you stop fearing rejection. You realize that anyone who can't handle you in your fullness was never meant to be in your orbit. This is where real freedom starts. You stop reacting to every slight, every exclusion, every petty act designed to make you feel small. Instead, you operate from a level where their approval is irrelevant because you've already claimed your place. You are no longer a guest. You are the ground they have to stand on if they want to stay near you. This is power that can't be faked. It's not about arrogance, it's about sovereignty. You don't just take up space, you become the space. And once you do, nothing and no one can push you out. Number two, you refuse to be their character development. You refuse to be their character development. That's a powerful decision because it means you are no longer sacrificing yourself so that other people can have a redemption story. For too long, you carried pain that became lessons for everyone else while you were left to pick up the pieces of your own life in silence. They got wiser, softer, and more self-aware because of how they treated you. But where did that leave you? Bruised, empty. Over-explaining your worth just so they could feel like they had grown. You were the plot twist that made them cry, the rock bottom that made them change, the storm that pushed them towards their breakthrough. That was their privilege, but it was never your responsibility. Now you've decided that you're done being the unpaid teacher in other people's lives. You're done being the one they hurt, betray, or abandon, just so they can have an epiphany about who they really are. They don't get to use your heartbreak as their spiritual homework anymore. You are no longer volunteering for pain so someone else can write in their journal about how they finally found themselves. That burden has been dropped. This choice doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. You know now that people will gladly keep learning at your expense if you keep signing up for the class. You've stopped signing up. You've stopped letting them fail you over and over again just so they can finally get it right with someone else. You've stopped letting them practice love, respect, and loyalty on you until they figure it out for the next person. Your soul is too expensive to keep funding someone else's growth. And here's where the shift becomes undeniable. When you refuse to be their character development, you take your power back. You start growing for yourself. You start choosing peace that doesn't involve cleaning up someone else's chaos. You start thriving without needing to prove anything to anyone. It's no longer about teaching them a lesson by staying. It's about teaching yourself a lesson by leaving. This is where your story stops being a side note in their journey and becomes the main event in your own. They can figure out their growth without you being the sacrifice. You are no longer the pain that shaped them. You are the reason they have to face themselves without you there to take the hit. Number 3, you're no longer impressed by the tables you used to beg to sit at. You're no longer impressed by the tables you used to beg to sit at. That's not just growth, that's a complete shift in perspective. Once upon a time, you thought being accepted by certain people, circles, or opportunities was the ultimate validation. You thought that sitting at their table meant you finally made it, that you were finally seen. But now you've lived long enough to see that some of those tables were rotten at the core. They weren't places of power, they were places of performance. You weren't being invited to be celebrated, you were being invited to play a role that made everyone else comfortable, while quietly shrinking yourself to fit in. Now that you've evolved, those tables don't impress you because you've learned what it costs to sit at them. You've seen the politics, the manipulation, the unspoken rules that keep everyone pretending instead of living. You've realized that some invitations were never about honoring your worth, they were about controlling your access. The version of you that used to beg to be included is gone. You've learned that proximity doesn't equal respect and that being allowed in doesn't always mean you belong. Instead of begging, you started building. Instead of knocking, you created something of your own that doesn't require their approval to exist. And this is where the power shifts. You're not desperate to sit with them anymore because you finally understand your own value. You don't measure your success by who lets you in. You measure it by how freely you can be yourself without having to bargain your soul for acceptance. This kind of transformation can be unsettling for people who are used to you chasing their validation. They see you walking away from places you once would have fought to stay in. And it unnerves them because it means you're no longer under their control. It means you've seen behind the curtain and realized you don't need what they're offering. What makes this so powerful is that you didn't just outgrow those tables. You redefined what a table even is. You've created a space where authenticity, not politics, is the entry fee, where your worth isn't up for debate and where anyone who sits with you has to meet you at the level of mutual respect. That is the freedom you were chasing all along. Number 4, you don't negotiate with energy that wants you dead. You don't negotiate with energy that wants you dead. And that's not just a statement, it's a survival code. There was a time you kept trying to meet people halfway, kept trying to explain yourself, kept hoping that if you just showed them your heart, they would finally handle it with care. You thought your compassion could turn an enemy into an ally, that your patience could soften their malice. But there comes a moment when you realize that some energy doesn't want peace. It wants you gone. It wants your light dimmed, your spirit broken, your purpose aborted. And you cannot negotiate with that. This is the part of your growth where you stop romanticizing, understanding people's pain as an excuse to let them keep hurting you. You can know why someone is the way they are and still choose not to let them near you. You can have compassion without letting yourself be their punching bag. Survival is not cruelty. Survival is clarity. You have learned that you cannot keep reasoning with energy that is committed to misunderstanding you, twisting your words and sabotaging your progress. When you deal in survival, you move differently. You stop oversharing with people who secretly hope you fail. You stop defending yourself to those who are invested in misjudging you. You stop running into burning buildings just to prove you can take the heat. Your priority becomes protecting your purpose, not convincing dangerous energy to like you. This doesn't make you bitter, it makes you strategic. You've stopped wasting emotional currency on people who have already made up their mind about you. You no longer hand out access to those who misuse it. You no longer bleed just to show them you can survive. And here's the most powerful part. When you refuse to negotiate with energy that wants you dead, you finally take back the power they were draining from you. You stop living on defense and start living on offense. You become intentional about where your time, love, and energy go. You build a life so aligned and so protected that anything that means you harm cannot stay. This is what real boundaries look like. Not just walls, but gates with locks that you hold the key to. You aren't cruel, you're careful. And that is what keeps you alive, thriving, and untouchable. Number 5, you don't need their closure, you became the door. You don't need their closure, you became the door. That is one of the most powerful shifts a person can ever experience because it means you no longer wait for someone else to tie up the loose ends of your story. You stopped waiting for apologies that were never coming, explanations that wouldn't have satisfied you, or validation from people who couldn't see you clearly even if they tried. You took all the fragments of what happened and built something stronger out of them. You stopped looking to the very people who broke you to also be the ones to heal you. Becoming the door means you now decide who and what gets access to you. You no longer sit at the mercy of someone else's timing, someone else's confession, someone else's acknowledgement of the truth. You've taken the power back into your own hands. If they can't respect you, they don't get in. If they can't handle your growth, they don't get close. If their energy drains you, they don't get a second chance to do it again. This is not about bitterness. It's about boundaries. It's about finally understanding that closure is often just a fancy word for control. Waiting for them to give it to you kept you stuck in a cycle where they still had power over your peace. You broke that cycle. You stopped standing outside their door hoping they'd invite you in, and instead you became the door yourself. The entry point, the limit, the threshold that protects your space. What makes this powerful is that it changes the balance. They don't get to just show up whenever they feel guilty or nostalgic and have access to you. They have to face the fact that you are no longer waiting for them. They have to deal with the reality that you have moved on and that access to you is no longer a given, it is earned. When you became the door, you also became the closure you were searching for. You realized that peace doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your decision to stop bleeding for people who won't even admit they cut you. That's the real ending. Not a conversation, not a confession, but your choice to guard your space and never let what dishonored you walk in again. Number 6, you don't play fair with people who play filthy. You don't play fair with people who play filthy, and that is not about revenge, it's about self-respect. There was a time you thought that staying good meant letting people walk all over you. You thought taking the moral high ground meant absorbing every insult, every betrayal, every act of cruelty without ever pushing back. You were taught to endure, to rise above, to be the bigger person even when it was killing you inside. But you've grown past that. You've learned that constantly turning the other cheek just gives abusers a free hand to keep swinging. Now you understand that boundaries without enforcement are just suggestions. You've stopped pretending that letting people get away with disrespect makes you enlightened. It just makes you an easy target. Your kindness is no longer free to those who weaponize it. Your forgiveness is no longer automatic for those who keep cashing in on it without changing. You have armed your boundaries, not with vengeance, but with consequences. And when someone crosses them now, it stings. This shift is not about becoming cruel, it's about becoming balanced. Playing fair with someone who plays filthy isn't fairness, it's self-destruction. It means you keep bleeding while they keep winning. You've decided that you will no longer participate in a game that was designed for you to lose. You refuse to keep handing second, third, and fourth chances to those who are committed to harming you. When you make this shift, people will call you cold, distant, even harsh. But that's because they benefited from the version of you that had no walls. They liked the version of you that tolerated the intolerable. Now that you respond with strength instead of silence, they feel the weight of their own actions. That's not cruelty, that's accountability. This is where you finally start protecting your peace with the same energy you use to protect everyone else's feelings. You no longer leave yourself exposed just to prove you're good. You know your worth, and you know that your safety, emotional, mental, spiritual, is not negotiable. You still play fair with those who deserve it, but for those who play filthy, you no longer offer your back as a target. You meet their chaos with a boundary so strong that it ends the game altogether. Number 7, You stopped asking for permission to exist. You stopped asking for permission to exist. And that is a quiet kind of rebellion that changes everything. For so long you shrank yourself to make others comfortable. You waited for approval before speaking, waited for validation before moving, waited for someone else to say you were worthy before daring to fully show up as yourself. Every step you took felt like you needed a stamp of acceptance from someone who was never going to give it. And somewhere along the line, you realized how exhausting that was. Living like a guest in your own life, tiptoeing around as if you needed a pass just to breathe. Now you've stopped asking. You've stopped waiting. You've stopped explaining why you think, feel, or dream the way you do. You take up space, not by being the loudest person in the room, but by refusing to disappear. You no longer apologize for existing, for having opinions, for wanting more, for being different. You no longer make yourself smaller just so someone else doesn't feel threatened by your presence. This shift doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you free. You are no longer living under the weight of invisible permission slips that never get signed. You do not wait for a nod of approval before taking your next step. You have decided that your life is valid because you are living it, not because someone else co-signed it. And this isn't about fighting for attention. It's about showing up fully, whether anyone notices or not. You're not trying to convince anyone of your worth anymore. You simply embody it. You walk into a room without asking yourself if you belong there because you know you do. You start projects, make moves, and take chances without waiting for everyone to agree it's a good idea. When you stopped asking for permission to exist, you stopped giving other people power over your identity. They no longer get to decide when you speak, how you live, or what you dream. Your existence itself is the proof that you are meant to be here. No more disclaimers, no more shrinking, no more waiting for someone to make you feel legitimate. You are here, you are present, and you are undeniable. Number 8, you aren't scared to be misunderstood. You aren't scared to be misunderstood. And that is one of the most liberating choices you can make. For so long, you wasted energy trying to explain yourself to people who were never interested in understanding you. You broke yourself down into pieces small enough for them to digest, hoping they'd finally see your intentions, your heart, your truth. But the more you explained, the more they twisted it. The more you tried to prove yourself, the more they used it against you. At some point, you had to face the reality that some people are committed to misunderstanding you because the story they've created about you serves them better than the truth ever could. Now you've let go of that fight. You don't lose sleep trying to fix their perception. You don't rewrite yourself to fit their version of you. If they want to paint you as the villain, let them. You've learned that protecting your peace matters more than clearing your name in rooms you don't even want to be in anymore. Your life is no longer a PR campaign for people who secretly hope you fail. This decision doesn't come from bitterness, it comes from strength. You've realized that being misunderstood is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Losing yourself just to be liked is. You'd rather be seen as cold than keep burning yourself out trying to prove you're warm. You'd rather be seen as selfish than keep giving to those who never pour back into you. When you stop fearing misunderstanding, you stop performing. You live more honestly because you're no longer filtering yourself through the lens of what they will think or say. And ironically, this is when you become the most powerful version of yourself, because you are free from their judgment. The truth is, their narrative can't stop your destiny. They can gossip, they can twist, they can try to ruin your name, but they cannot touch what's meant for you. Choosing peace over proving yourself is not weakness. It's knowing that the people who truly matter will know your heart without you having to explain it. The rest can keep talking. You've got better things to do than play defense in someone else's story. Number 9, you quit romanticizing pain. You quit romanticizing pain. And that decision changed the entire trajectory of your life. For too long you were taught that pain was noble, that suffering somehow made you more worthy, that endurance was the highest form of strength. You were told to be strong, be patient, be forgiving, even when what you really needed was to be free. Somewhere along the way, pain became a badge of honor. You wore it like proof that you were good enough to survive anything. But surviving isn't the same as thriving, and you finally understood that living in a constant state of struggle isn't a personality trait, it's a prison. When you stopped romanticizing pain, you stopped calling chaos character building. You stopped mistaking suffering for destiny. You stopped letting people convince you that your heartbreak was just part of the plan, when in reality it was the result of patterns you were never meant to tolerate in the first place. You stopped seeing pain as a teacher you had to keep learning from, and started seeing it as a messenger, one that had already delivered its message and could finally leave. This shift made you dangerous in the best way. The suffering they thought would break you down into someone more submissive actually sharpened you. It made you more precise in what you allow into your life. It made you powerful because you no longer attach your identity to how much you can endure. And it made you impossible to manipulate because guilt, shame, and obligation no longer work on you. People who once thrived on your pain will notice the difference. They'll call you changed, distant, even hard. But what really happened is that you've stopped funding their comfort with your suffering. You've stopped being the one who bleeds so everyone else can heal. You've stopped being the one who absorbs all the weight just to keep the peace. Now you choose peace that doesn't require your destruction. You choose love that doesn't demand you lose yourself. You choose joy without waiting for tragedy to give you permission to feel it. Quitting the romance with pain didn't make you weaker. It made you whole. You are no longer defined by what hurt you. You are defined by what you built after the hurting stopped. Number 10, you let the tower fall. You let the tower fall. And that was the moment everything changed. For the longest time, you held it all together. The relationships that drained you, the roles that no longer fit, the expectations that crushed you, the unspoken agreements that kept everyone else comfortable while you slowly broke inside. You kept the tower standing because you thought that was strength. You thought that holding the pieces together, no matter the cost, proved you were reliable, loyal, unshakable. But in reality, it was killing you. Every brick you kept in place cost you a little more of yourself until there was barely anything left. Letting the tower fall wasn't weakness. It was the first real act of courage. It meant facing the chaos you'd been trying to avoid. It meant accepting that some things weren't meant to be saved, no matter how much history or hope was tied to them. It meant releasing the illusion that you could fix everything if you just tried harder. When the tower fell, so did the lies you told yourself about what you had to carry. And yes, collapse is messy. People were shocked. Some got angry. Others tried to guilt you into holding it up one more time. But you knew that if you didn't let it fall, you would. So you chose yourself. You chose to step back, let what was unstable finally crumble, and face the truth of what remained. And here's the thing. What was left after the collapse was real. The people who stayed because they wanted to, not because they were being held there by your effort. The parts of you that remained were authentic, not just survival mechanisms. This decision freed you. You no longer live in fear of things falling apart because you've already seen what happens, and you survived it. You no longer carry the false weight of keeping everyone and everything together. You no longer confuse control with love or exhaustion with loyalty. Letting the tower fall gave you space to rebuild, but this time on solid ground with healthier foundations and better boundaries. You don't chase stability by holding up dead structures anymore. You create it by only building with what supports you back. The collapse that was meant to destroy you became the moment you finally started living. Number 11. You became your own witness. You became your own witness, and that is one of the most powerful positions you can stand in. For so long you waited for someone else to say, yes, that happened to you, yes, it was real, yes, it was wrong. You wanted someone to validate the pain you went through, to recognize the strength it took to survive it, to tell the truth about how it all went down. You wanted someone to stand beside you and say, I saw it too. But you've learned that waiting for witnesses can keep you stuck in places you've already outgrown. Now you no longer wait. You no longer beg for acknowledgement from people who were either blind, complicit, or too comfortable in their silence to speak up. You have become your own witness, and that is enough. Your scars tell the story. Your resilience is the proof. The life you live now is the evidence. You no longer need anyone else to validate your experience because you carry the truth in your bones. This shift changes everything. It stops you from over-explaining yourself to people who have no intention of believing you anyway. It stops you from trying to convince the very ones who benefited from your silence. It stops you from reliving your pain just to prove it was real. You stop looking outward for confirmation and start trusting your own memory, your own intuition, your own knowing. Being your own witness is not about staying angry. It's about reclaiming your narrative. You're no longer afraid to say, that happened, and it mattered. You don't minimize what you went through just because it makes other people uncomfortable. You don't let anyone gaslight you into doubting your reality. You know what you saw, what you felt, and what you survived. And here's the most liberating part. When you become your own witness, you also become your own advocate. You stop living like a victim waiting for a courtroom that may never come. You step into the role of your own defender, your own storyteller, your own validator. You realize that you are not crazy, not dramatic, not exaggerating. You're simply telling the truth. And whether anyone else ever admits it or not, your truth stands because you stand. Number 12. You made pain afraid of you. You made pain afraid of you. And that is not just strength. That is transformation at its highest level. Pain used to run your life. It dictated your moods, your decisions, your trust in others. It came unannounced, stayed as long as it wanted, and left you picking up the pieces in silence. For a long time, pain owned you. It made you reactive, defensive, and sometimes even bitter. But then something shifted. Instead of running from it or drowning in it, you turned around and faced it head on. You stopped treating pain like a life sentence and started treating it like a teacher whose lesson you were determined to master. Processing your pain wasn't easy. It meant sitting with memories that burned, feeling emotions that made your chest heavy, and confronting truths that were uncomfortable. But you stayed in that process until pain had nothing left to hold over you. You stripped it of its power by learning everything it came to teach you. You let it sharpen your intuition, refine your boundaries, and deepen your empathy. Not for those who hurt you, but for yourself. Now pain doesn't have the same grip on you. It can't control your reactions the way it used to. It can't sneak up on you and drag you into the same dark places, because you've already been there and you built light inside those shadows. You've become so resilient, so intentional that pain actually thinks twice before coming for you. It knows that if it shows up, you will turn it into fuel. You will take what was meant to break you and forge it into something unstoppable. Purpose, art, wisdom, power. This kind of strength is intimidating to those who once benefited from your suffering. They can no longer weaponize your pain against you. They can no longer guilt, manipulate, or control you because what used to trigger you no longer holds that same sting. You've become the kind of person who meets pain with a steady gaze and says, if you're here, you're going to work for me. That is why pain now hesitates before touching you, because you've proven that anything it throws at you will be transformed into something lethal for your growth, something that elevates you beyond the reach of those who tried to break you. You are no longer pain's victim, you are its master. Number 13, you are not their entertainment anymore. You are not their entertainment anymore. And that is a power move most people never see coming. For too long you were the show. Your struggles, your heartbreaks, your constant ability to get back up became a spectacle for others. They watched your pain like it was a series they couldn't stop streaming. They gossiped about your setbacks, dissected your choices, and secretly fed off the drama in your life because it made theirs seem less empty. Some even pretended to be supportive, but deep down they were entertained by how much you could endure. At some point you realized that you had been performing strength just to prove you could survive. You kept putting on a brave face so no one would see how deeply you were hurting, and ironically that performance became part of the entertainment. People clapped for your resilience but never helped you carry the weight. They admired your ability to rise but never questioned why you had to keep rising in the first place. Then came the shift. You stopped putting on the show. You stopped narrating every wound. You stopped handing out front row seats to people who only wanted to spectate, not support. You withdrew from the circus, and at first it felt quiet, even lonely, but then you noticed something powerful. Your peace returned, your energy came back. Your healing accelerated because you weren't bleeding in public for other people's curiosity anymore. Now the ones who were entertained by your pain have nothing to watch. Some of them will be confused, others offended because your suffering was their favorite distraction. But you no longer care. Your life is not a stage, and your struggles are not content for anyone else's amusement. You are no longer interested in being the tragic hero in their narrative. You are the author of your own story now. This choice doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. You share your journey with those who have earned the right to witness it, not with those who turn it into gossip or spectacle. You no longer perform strength, you simply live it. And that is why you are more powerful now than you have ever been, because your healing is no longer public property. It belongs to you. Number 14. You chose to be unreachable where they expect access. You chose to be unreachable where they expect access. And that is a level of growth that makes people deeply uncomfortable. For so long they knew exactly which buttons to press to get you to respond. They knew how to guilt you into coming back, how to play the victim so you'd feel sorry for them, how to push you just far enough until you snapped and they could call you emotional. You were predictable to them because you kept showing up when they called, even when it cost you your peace. But that version of you is gone. You didn't just block them on your phone, you blocked the part of yourself that was willing to dance to their tune. You blocked the need to explain yourself, the urge to rush in and fix everything, the compulsion to be available every time they decided they wanted your energy. You cut off the emotional strings they were using to pull you back into the same cycles you fought so hard to escape. This is not about petty revenge or holding grudges. This is about reclaiming your sovereignty. You finally understood that access to you is a privilege, not a right. And just because someone had it in the past doesn't mean they get to keep it. You have every right to protect your space, your mind, and your heart from those who have proven they don't handle them with care. Being unreachable is powerful because it shifts the control back to you. It forces people to deal with themselves instead of outsourcing their chaos to you. It stops them from draining you every time they feel lonely, angry, or bored. And it teaches them that if they want access to you again, they have to approach you with respect, accountability, and consistency, not manipulation. This move will make some people furious. They will call you distant, selfish, even cruel. But what they're really mad about is losing their ability to control you. They're mad that you no longer answer to their emotional summons. Choosing to be unreachable where they expect access is one of the purest forms of self-respect. It's not about cutting everyone off. It's about cutting off the version of you that let them run your life. You've stepped into a place where your peace is non-negotiable, and that is why they can no longer reach you the way they used to. Here's a powerful, all-encompassing conclusion that ties every point together and leaves a lasting impact. You are no longer playing by the rules they set. You are no longer shrinking to fit expectations, no longer bleeding so others can grow, no longer performing strength for spectators who only wanted to watch you suffer. You stopped negotiating with energy that doesn't serve you, stopped waiting for validation from those who never cared, and stopped holding together what was never meant to last. You became the space, the door, the witness, the threshold that protects your peace and amplifies your power. You quit romanticizing pain, let towers fall, and made pain itself afraid to touch you. You reclaimed yourself, fully, unapologetically, undeniably. This is the life of someone who no longer asks for permission, who no longer fears being misunderstood, and who refuses to be anyone's character development. You've stopped being entertainment for those who thrived on your struggle and started being a force that commands respect without explanation. You are unreachable where they expected access, untouchable where they thought they had influence, and unstoppable because you finally understand that your existence is enough. Every scar, every betrayal, every moment that tried to break you now fuels your precision, your power, and your sovereignty. You are living proof that survival is only the beginning, that endurance, when coupled with awareness and intentionality, transforms into mastery. You don't just exist anymore, you dominate the space you occupy, control the narrative of your life, and dictate who gets to witness your journey. This is not arrogance, this is clarity, this is self-sovereignty. You are the storm they underestimated, the force they tried to contain, and the energy they can no longer touch. You are the living answer to every doubt, every attempt to break you, and every expectation they tried to force on you. Rise, move, and live in this power. Let them watch. Let them wonder. You are done explaining, done shrinking, and done surviving on anyone else's terms. You are not just here. You are here fully, and nothing can take that from you. If this message hit you, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a dose of truth that empowers and awakens. Smash that like button if you feel the energy. Comment below to share your thoughts or your story, and share this with anyone who needs to hear it. Your support not only fuels this movement, but also spreads the power to those who are ready to claim their space, their peace, and their destiny. Don't wait. Step fully into your power and let them see what happens next. Stay blessed always.